Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Lloyd, and well, I don't know if he's below me on your screen or beside me, but that's my son Harry. And welcome to the Path to Paradise. This is, I believe, the 8th of October 2025. And thank all of you for being here. And we are really excited. Paradise launched after 5 years for me and a year for Harry on Friday. And we are getting wonderful feedback. I'd like to read you. I got this note 2 days after Paradise launched, and this was from Andy. And he has done everything that we have ever done: Healing Codes, Trilogy, Love Code, LT3, all of it. And here's what he said after 2 days on the practice of Paradise. I'm quoting directly. "I thought you would never catch me off guard again, Alex, but you did. This time I feel like you didn't invent the Paradise practice, but rather that you discovered it, meaning that it existed somewhere and was revealed as a gift to the human soul. It feels so natural for the body, and yes, is more meaningful to me than LT3, and maybe 3 times more powerful than LT3. I believe it is a divine practice. I feel it. I felt it before I even tried it right away when I opened it. The way I feel now, the perfect synchronicity. I'm a follower of Jesus too, Dr. Alex, but I'm not sure if I really understand exactly what that means yet. It's not my choice anymore, but mostly a consent with what is happening in my heart right now. If I'm right, I may be the strangest follower of all." And I think he's talking about a follower of Jesus, which is what Harry and I are as well. So anyway, the Practice of Paradise Founders Group will close this coming Friday at 12 o'clock Central Time, I believe. We are wanting to nurture and spoon feed that group to try to grow it, if it doesn't end up there on Friday, to 144, and start a movement in cities all over, we hope. But if not, to you at home and others. And we believe this is the most powerful and effective thing we've ever done. I think it's not that close in that regard. So anyway, today Harry is going to share one of his teachings, and this is not him teaching one of my teachings. He wrote this word for word from the ground up. This is also not AI. This is from Harry's mind and heart, from the start to finish, every word. And I'm considered an expert in psychology and in energy and energy medicine and energy psychology by at least some people. My book is the top-selling book in history in the field of energy psychology. My publisher tells me, and they tell me it's not close. But on this issue, what Harry has written that he's going to share with you today is better than anything I've ever said on the subject, better than anything I've ever read on the subject. And yes, I know I'm biased because he's my son, but
Did you want to go over the DSM-5 before I talk about what I have to say?
I don't have that up right now, so I may find that while you're talking and share it after you're done.
Okay.
So I'll try to find the DSM-5 on narcissism and share it at the end. I should have had that ready. I forgot about it. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Harry, and I'm going to unmute and back out of the way a little bit. I'll be back for Q&A and discussion at the end. So Harry, it's all yours.
Okay. So I'm told that narcissism is a really big topic in the world right now, with lots of people accusing each other of being narcissists and that sort of thing. And before I properly get started, I'd like to stress that this is not meant to call anyone out. I think that you could say that narcissism is a spectrum that we're all on. And certainly I struggle with it uh, pretty frequently. So I want to say that before I get into it. So what's interesting to me is not only is narcissism a popular topic, like a popular thing to say as an accusation, but it's also very fashionable. And that seems strange to say. And of course, it's not, people don't proudly identify themselves as narcissists. They use different words. But I think that it's snuck into the culture. So there's this modern idea that your identity is self-derived, that you decide for yourself what is true of yourself based on your emotions, your urges, your desires, and other facets of your subjective internal environment. And then expressing, celebrating, and being recognized for that identity becomes the process of self-actualization. That's a radically narcissistic claim, and it's very popular right now. A lot of people explicitly believe it and are even evangelical about it, and a lot more people live it out without explicitly subscribing to it. And I think the reason for that is that if you break it down, this revolutionary idea, like the line is that this sort of self-identity is progressive, and that it's breaking the chains of outdated social mores in order to become a fully realized individual. I believe that what it actually is nothing more than our basest, most naturalistic, you might say childish impulses dressed up in new cultural language that is designed to render it morally palatable. So when I called it radically narcissistic a moment ago, that sounds like I'm throwing an insult around, but it's actually a very deliberate choice of words, because I'm told that the literal meaning of the word radical is back to basics, and this is about as basic and original as narcissism can possibly get. So I don't know if any of you have started the Practice of Paradise program yet. If you have, something you may have noticed about me, if you've watched some of those videos, is that I really like to emphasize understanding the specific meanings of words in order to better understand the relationships that are supposed to exist between them. So, and a lot of those words that we talk about are from the Bible. The word narcissist isn't. It doesn't come from the Bible, but it does originate from some of their contemporaries, the ancient Greeks. I don't know if how many of you might know something about the myth of Narcissus. So in Greek legend, Narcissus is a supernaturally beautiful child who was born to a nymph and a river god. And, Greek mythology is full of stories of, people who are born from one godly parent and they have some kind of extraordinary gift, like Hercules had his strength. Narcissus was supernaturally beautiful. And so when he was young, his mother took him to a seer, an oracle named Tiresias, and asked whether her son would live a long life. And Tiresias said he will live a long life if he never knows himself. So how that actually played out is Narcissus grows up, he becomes even more beautiful, he's being constantly romantically pursued by men and women, but he had no interest with it. He scorned everyone who loved him and who tried to pursue him, and he seemed to have no interest in companionship. So this goes on for a while, and eventually one of the suitors that he spurned prays that to the gods that Narcissus would feel the pain that he caused others. So the goddess Nemesis, whose job it is to punish the arrogant, leads Narcissus to a still, clear pool in the woods. And when he bends down to drink, he sees his reflection in the water for the first time. And most versions of the story would say he falls in love with it. I wouldn't use the word love because I don't think that's really applicable to a situation where you are just looking at yourself. But he becomes enthralled with it anyway. So he tries to reach out to the image, he tries to speak to it, he tries to kiss it, And every time he does, of course, it just dissolves into ripples because it's just an empty pool. It has no meaning. And then, depending on the telling of the story, eventually he either wastes away in isolation or he takes his own life, which is very interesting to me because still today, that is what typically happens to people with really severe narcissism. So, even according to the Greeks, who are a pagan culture in the sense of being non-Christian, the sin and the doom of Narcissus is in valuing his own image above things that are of higher meaning. And what Tiresias said was really interesting because he predicted that Narcissus would live long if he never knows himself. And so we have the context for that now, meaning if he never recognizes his own image as an object of worship. Basically saying, I know that he has this weakness and he'll live a long life if he's never confronted with it, which is really saying, in a broader philosophical sense, he'll live long if he remains innocent. So you think about that, and then you have to look around at the world we live in with all of its messiness and its temptation and its reflective surfaces, and you have to ask yourself, how likely is that? So what the loss of innocence, I would say, really means is an experiential awakening to the reality of evil. And that can occur either by a willing transgression against our own moral law or from someone transgressing against us. Eventually, of course, you're going to experience both. But to anyone who even glances at the world we live in, it's obvious that if you live past childhood, you have no chance of keeping your innocence. The only way to die innocent is to die very young, but I wouldn't recommend that as a solution. So then you might think, okay, you can't source affection from yourself. You can't source love from yourself, but maybe we can go on with this idea if several of us get together and mutually recognize each other's self-derived identities. Then we can give each other affirmation and affection. And on the surface, that's true, but it's only true because it's incomplete. Because affection and affirmation do not constitute love. That's one of the shallower parts of love, and it's not even something that love always takes that form. Sometimes tough love is what's needed. Remember that in the story that Narcissus is the recipient of constant affection. He had all the opportunity in the world to find happiness with another person, and he was incapable because the reflective pool is just the mythical projection of a human failing that was there from the very beginning. The problem wasn't that Narcissus was alone at the pool. The problem was that it wouldn't have mattered because his own empty reflection, his own image, and remember, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast yet, but that images are the language of the heart, and we can back that up, was occupying the place of highest meaning, which we would say, of course, is the place of God. So a Christian would have given a very different warning than Tiresias did if the Christian was in that situation and had that same forewarning. Tiresias did not provide a realistic solution. It's not that there's no realistic way to maintain your innocence throughout a full adult life. Which is where I would say that the Greeks knew that they understood the problem, but not how to fix it. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons that I believe the fantastical stories in the Bible and not the fantastical stories in Greek mythology. The Christian warning, I suspect, would have gone something like, he will live a long life if he recognizes in himself the image of God. And if you are not a Christian, you can conceptualize the image of God as that which is ultimately meaningful. For example, if he had been capable of loving any of the many people who pursued him romantically, then he could have found some meaning in her image and in the act of loving her. So, of course, we believe that ultimate meaning is only found in relation with God, but don't forget that we are all made in his image, and truly sacrificial Christian love for anyone is of a kind with the love of God, and is honored by him, as Jesus explicitly states in Matthew 25, quote, "To the extent that you did it for one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it for me." So the book of Genesis breaks this down very clearly with the introduction of Eve. God says that it's not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. And the word suitable used there is nega in Hebrew, which means something like in front of, in the sight of, or front and center. And the subtext implies a kind of beneficial opposition in the sense of mirrored forces, that as you look at her, she looks directly back at you, and meaning is created in the act of attending to one another to the exclusion of self, which is a direct contrast to the one-directional reflection in Narcissus' pool. And you could even go as far as to say that this is the main mechanism of action behind all Christian love, as evidenced in 1 John 4:12, quote, "No one has seen God at any time, but if we love one another with unselfish concern, God abides in us, and his love, the love that is his essence, abides in us and is completed and perfected in us." Now, most people, even today, would agree that love is the highest good, that that's what life is all about. And most of the radically narcissistic people would. I suspect that if you were to find a terrorist who was willing to sit down and have an honest conversation with you, they would tell you the same thing. But I've one of the big things that I'd like to talk about is how slippery that word love can be. Because we all know that it's so important, we all tend to have our own ideas of what it means. And in the end, depending on where you get your definitions, it can end up meaning almost anything. Often it ends up meaning whatever the speaker wants it to mean. Now, love in the highest Christian sense, what you may have heard called agape love in the Greek, is defined by self-sacrifice, which is to say the sacrifice of the love of yourself, which sits naturally in the place of highest meaning, which is where radical narcissism says it should be. Now, most people say that they like the idea of self-sacrificing agape love for a few reasons. First, it's conceptually beautiful. It's the subject of like most of our poetry and music. They like it because they like the idea of being loved self-sacrificially, as anyone would. And they often think that they want to take it on themselves because they imagine all of the wonderful charitable feelings that sometimes go along with it. But this too is a radical concept that requires a lot of messy and chaotic work to make real. Not to mention the bloody business of cutting away parts of yourself to lay on that altar. Now, that makes it sound very dreadful, which it isn't, but it is violent in the sense of being characterized by the constant pursuit of that which causes conflict, loss, victory, defeat, and injury. It's a call to the highest adventure for the highest meaning, but it is not safe and it is not comfortable, which is a problem for most of us because it's comfort that drives most of our behavior. And that's also one of the main reasons why self-sacrificial love upsets so many people, even to the point of killing, as was the case with Jesus. What it is that makes people angry is that that calling doesn't only demand that you lay down your own comfort, it also threatens the comfort of others because it's communicable. People only know one proper way to respond to self-sacrificing love. I think it's instinctual because from infancy, that love is the only way we can survive. You know, a baby has no ability to take care of itself. It cannot provide you any compensation. Children only grow to adulthood through self-sacrifice of the parents or guardians. So and I think that's an instinct that we carry forward into adulthood, that we instinctively know we are supposed to reciprocate. So if I express a higher degree of self-sacrificing love than you want to reciprocate, that's aggravating. Because if you won't reciprocate, then you have to answer some very hard questions about yourself, or failing that, go into hiding, or failing that, find a way to make me lesser than yourself. And they tried all three of those with Jesus, as one example. In the story, I believe this is why Narcissus shows scorn for those who pursue him instead of just being indifferent to it. Because their desire for him, even if it's motivated only by lust, attempts to awaken a higher purpose for the value which he reserves only for himself. So the truth that comes out of that I believe is incontrovertible, is that a commitment to real highest love, agape love, is fundamentally incompatible with the notion of self-derived meaning or self-derived identity, which are really the same thing. A man cannot have two masters. And this is what it comes down to. You cannot live self-sacrificially for others if your core identity is founded on the self you would be sacrificing. You might like the idea, you might want to do it, but ultimately you will not allow it to happen. So that's pretty much what I have to say on the subject. You're muted. You're muted, Deb.
Thank you so much, Harry. I found the DSM-5 criteria, and I'll go over this. Here's what's important: is that you can the DSM-5 criteria. It's really a continuum. It's not like there is a hard line, meaning, okay, if you have at least five of these, then you would qualify for being a narcissist. But if you have four, you may still be really close to being an official narcissist and be an unofficial narcissist. If you have three, if you have two, if you have one of them that's really big, you don't qualify maybe for being a narcissist, but you still drive everybody around you nuts. And they would see you maybe as a narcissist. Okay. So, anyway, here's the basic criteria. And if you have five of these, you would officially be diagnosed as a narcissist. A grandiose sense of self-importance, tending to exaggerate achievements and believe that you are special. And I believe we're all special before God. That's more the selfish special. Preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, beauty, or ideal love. A belief that you are unique and can only be understood by or should even associate with other special people. A need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitive behavior, taking advantage of others to achieve what you want. A lack of empathy is one of the biggest ones. Narcissists have a great struggle with being able to empathize with others. Envy of others or a belief that others are envious of you. Arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. And those are the main ones. So, but remember, you can have an official diagnosis or you can just lean that way and, have a negative effect on the people around you. So, that's the DSM-5 official psychological professional diagnostic criteria.
Yeah,
So,
and I'd also like to add, because it is a continuum, that I am not saying that someone who is narcissistic or who has these beliefs about self-derived identity is incapable of love or self-sacrifice. What I'm saying is more that to the extent that you are committed to that, your ability to live that way will be limited.
right, right. Okay, so if anyone has question, comment, discussion about this, about the Healing Codes Trilogy, Love Code, LT3, the Practice of Paradise that just launched, which is kind of where we're steering the whole company now, probably for good. We will do our best to answer that or to enter into discussion. So I think if you have that, you put it in the chat or whatever it's called on YouTube Live. Or I'm reminding you again, if you're watching this, you're on YouTube Live. Harry and I are not on YouTube Live. We're on Zoom, and our wonderful technical person, Laura, is broadcasting it over to YouTube Live. So I don't know what exactly it says on your screen as far as chat or reaction or questions, but whatever that is, if you type them in, they'll come to us. Laura is broad. Okay, I'm being told there's no questions or discussion yet. So we'll give you another minute or two. We're going to be doing this podcast every second, third, and fourth Wednesday of the month. we will talk about the practice of paradise, probably on every one of them a little bit, but also we'll talk about other things, other topics, whatever we feel is kind of relevant and will be helpful to you at the time. Um, and really anything in the area that you would like to discuss. If we don't know the answer, we'll say we don't know, and hey, what is everybody else's thoughts about that?
Mhm.
Harry, I think the thesis on narcissism was the first one you've written. What caused you to go to that area first?
Um, Really, I just went that way because several things that I'd been thinking about happened to sort of coalesce, and I
Okay.
felt like I had something worth saying about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really an intentional decision.
Okay. And he has some other thesis and is working on another one right now. We will probably be sharing those as we go along in time as well.
So I opened up the stream on YouTube, and I can see we do have a question now. How do you deal with a person who has strong narcissistic traits?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I can go first.
Go ahead.
Well, it helps to be aware of the tactics that they generally use. Jordan Peterson has had a lot of good stuff to say about that. You should check him out. But they will tend to use emotionally manipulative tactics. They'll tend to twist facts in order to impose guilt or obligation on you. They will often use gaslighting. So just being aware of that and understanding how those tactics are employed and um, where you can call them out and say and not accept those things that they're thrusting on you is really helpful.
Yeah. In my experience, narcissists tend to pretty much all have a pretty hair trigger anger.
Hmm.
And the Bible says a soft or kind answer turneth away wrath. And it also talks about, speaking softly and kindly kind of heaps coals on their head. Now, I'm not saying we want to heap coals on their head. I don't particularly. But the point is, that's a tactic they almost can't deal with. Um, it almost drives them insane that you're not getting angry or they're not guilting you or shaming you, that you're just continuing to be kind and okay and having a reasonable, logical conversation. They don't want that. That they want to blow up. They want an argument. They want to put you in your place.
Yeah,
Okay.
they want to use obfuscation and confusion and emotion to draw you away from a reasonable, structured conversation into a messy situation where they can overwhelm you with force of personality.
Right. So stay calm, stay logical and reasonable. If they make a statement that you know does not make sense, very kindly ask them, okay, well, what's your evidence for that? What's your source for that truth? And it's very likely they won't have a good one, or they'll have a junk study, or they'll have something they just make up. Narcissists tend to lie all the time.
Mhm.
Um, so stay calm, stay reasonable. Um, don't run away. It's kind of the fight or flight stuff. Fight or flight is fight, freeze, or flee. Well, don't do any of those. Stay calm, stay engaged, stay logical and reasonable. If they say something that doesn't make sense, don't yell at them. Don't try to pin them to the wall. Just very calmly, kindly, okay, well, where are you getting that fact? Where are you getting that truth? And let's look it up together and see what it says, or let me research that, and I'll get back to you in 30 minutes or whatever after I have a chance to research myself what you're saying. And you're probably thinking right now, goodness gracious, this sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I want to work this hard. And that's true.
It is a lot of work.
Narcissists are, they're not impossible to deal with, but it certainly can become exhausting to deal with because they're like, it's kind of like grabbing a slippery fish. No matter where you try to be reasonable and call out their lies or falsehoods, call out them claiming things that they can't back up, they will just try to slither to another manipulation or deception.
Mhm.
They do not tend to give up. If they give up, it will be probably them yelling or screaming at you and then walking away with some very loud last comment that sort of reinforces, I won this in some way. The only reason I'm leaving is because you're just impossible to talk with or something like that, which is, of course, another obfuscation, not the truth. And I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily try to nail them to the wall on that. I would just, okay, well, whenever you want to talk some more, um, I'm here, or, we can schedule a time or whatever.
And also keep in mind that the enemy is the sin, not the sinner.
Right.
And
Great point.
as hard as narcissists are to deal with, it's worse for them. And,
Yeah.
this is a person who is in a tremendous amount of confusion and probably pain themselves. And after you go home, they still have to live with themselves.
That's right. Great point. Great point. Yeah. To forgive and don't ever go to a place of unforgiveness because that'll eat you up. That won't hurt the narcissist. That'll hurt you. But to forgive, you've got to separate the person from the offense. And that's what God does. It says he separates your sin from you as the east is from the west and remembers it no more. And that's what you have to do to forgive. You don't have to forgive the act. That may be unforgivable and that's up to God, but you have to forgive the person because you will be forgiven as you forgive. So if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. Plus, it'll just eat you alive inside. So yeah, great point. Okay, I'm not getting any other questions or discussion. Um,
We've just had a few more people start watching, so we might give them a minute. Uh, we've been talking about the subject of narcissism and how that relates to the Christian life and also to life in general, what it means to be a narcissist or to have narcissistic traits according to our worldview.
And if you did come in late, this will be posted on YouTube in its entirety, and you can go back and hear the thesis on narcissism that is the best one I've ever seen.
Okay, here's one. I have a question regarding the path to paradise. Is it a practice slash modality I can do in place of belief mapping, which I've been practicing? So the path to paradise is just the name of this podcast, which is more talking about the new modality, which is the practice of paradise. Names may be slightly confusing. Um, and so that's a whole big new thing. I would prefer to keep using belief mapping in tandem with practice of paradise. If you do start doing practice of paradise, I think it's a really great addition.
Yeah, in fact, we tell you how to use belief mapping with the practice of paradise. But I think to answer your question, there are new interventions in practice of paradise that we've never shared before, or written books about or anything else. This is the first time we've ever shared them publicly. So yes, there are new interventions in the practice of paradise that I believe are more effective than anything else we have. But I would do it with belief mapping, and we tell you how to do that in the program. Okay. All right. All right. Harry, any last comments?
No, I think I'm ready to wrap up.
Okay, go ahead. Did you have a wrap up?
Oh, I didn't mean. No, I think I've said everything I need to say.
Okay, okay. So we'll be here every second, third, and fourth Wednesday at this time. Unless something comes up, if it comes up, a scheduling thing, we'll let you know. Okay, we're doing it on Thursday this week, or we're skipping this week because of something. I don't anticipate that happening very often. And remember, the Practice of Paradise mentorship program registration will close at midnight on Friday. And I think we will reopen it at some point. I don't know when. We want to do it in chunks because we want to really nurture the people that come. We're trying to get to start a movement that will spread to cities and towns all over and help as many people as possible. And by the way, I think we shared this on the last podcast. If you want to start a group in your town, whether that's virtual or in person, we'll help you do that. That's the kind of thing we want to have happen. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Harry. Great job. Please give us feedback. And we will read everything you send. We will pray over it, consider it. We want to make this as good as we can, and we know that we probably haven't started out the best possible way. So we need your feedback for that. And thank you for being here. God bless you. Laura, thank you for helping with the technical. And that's it for me.